Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the MikeMiss blog, which you can see every Friday on MikeMiss.com. And we got a lot to talk about in this week's edition of the blog on MikeMiss.com. As you can see, I'm a little blustery today because it's the chill is in the air with the wet weather. It's autumn, but I am rocking the red hat today, the Mike Missinelli podcast hat. Now you can get one of these, and I'll tell you at the end how you can get one of these. It's very simple. I'll send you one personally, but I'm wearing the red today in honor of the Philadelphia Phillies, who have clinched their playoff spot. And we knew for a really long time that they were going to be the fourth seed, so the first wild card team, and it just a matter who they were going to play in the first series and whether it mattered who they were going to play, because we're all looking ahead to that second series where they'd have to play the Atlanta Braves, who are going to get a bye. So let's look at the first series, and it's all but certain now that they're going to play the Arizona Diamondbacks, of all teams, in the first round of the playoffs, best of three at Citizens Bank Park. So let's look at that matchup. The Arizona Diamondbacks are still fighting to clinch that spot, however. So today, as we're doing this on a Friday, they need to get one more win or count on one more loss from another team for them to clinch the fifth seed and play the Phillies. And so the Arizona Diamondbacks thought they would have this sewed up before tonight, but they don't. So that means they're going to have to pitch their ace, who is in regular rotation, Zach Gallen, the kid from Jersey who went to Bishop Eustace. They're going to have to pitch him tonight in this game and try to get into the playoffs. First of all, they can't hold him back and say they're in the playoffs already. That's going to work out for him. So they have to pitch Gallen tonight, which means he won't be able to start the first game of that series against the Phillies on Tuesday. Now that matters because the only chance the Diamondbacks really have in this series is to get really good starting pitching and hold down that Phillies offense and squeak away with a small run win. But they can't pitch Gallen. Now, if they lose tonight, interesting enough, they have to pitch their second best pitcher, Merrill Kelly, who's been pretty tough on the Phillies. But if he has to go Saturday, that throws them totally out of whack. They would have absolutely no chance to win this series. As it stands now, if they win tonight with Zach Gallen, they can pitch Merrill Kelly in game one against Zach Wheeler in the first game of the playoffs, which still favors the Phillies, I think, in that series being the home game. So listen, the bottom line is the Phillies have a better lineup than Arizona. They have a better lineup than the Cubs or the Marlins or the Reds, whoever was going to survive in that wild card position. And they're playing really good baseball right now. And so, there was a point a couple of weeks ago where I didn't think this was the year they were going to beat the Braves in that short series. But the more I think about this and the more together they've gotten, because the lineup is really hitting and the pitching has kind of solved itself. We were worried about a couple things. We were worried about Aaron Nola in the two-hole, and we were worried about the back end of the bullpen, which had been leaking a little bit. But since then, those two entities have gotten solidified. So let's talk first about that Nola. They're going to be able now with the clinch to give him extra rest. And that matters for a guy like Aaron Nola. With extra rest, meaning without his regular rest in the rotation, his extra rest ERA is 1 run better than it is with him on regular rest. So that's encouraging. In addition to that, he's only allowed 3 earned runs in his last 12 innings, and he's got 10 strikeouts with no walks. So he's kind of in a groove, and hopefully he can save that, get that good start against the Diamondbacks, but save it for the Braves where they really need them when they start on the road in that series. Let's look at the bullpen. Now, this is interesting because it looked like that Craig Kimbrell was going to be their closer for the playoffs, but that's not the way it's working out. He's starting to leak a little bit, and I think Rob Thompson is now going to use a closer by committee using matchups, and whatever matchups favor his pitchers against certain hitters. So let's look at, they've got 3 left-handers right now that can get left-handers out, and that's really important when you got Matt Olson coming to the plate. So let's look at Jose Alvarado, who's gotten it together. Last 13 batters past the 4 innings, only 1 has reached base. So he's in a pretty good groove with that cutter. Hopefully he stays that way. Jeff Hoffman has been unbelievable. He's been consistent. And righties are only hitting 124 against him. So he may be a guy that they use in high leverage situations, maybe 8th inning with Kimbrell. And then it's whoever the matchups are, whoever comes up in the 9th inning, they'll match up accordingly. Gregory Soto has been really good. He's held lefties this year to a 209 on base percentage. And that's the 3rd lowest in Major League Baseball. So he's done his job against lefties, and Matt Strom's pretty good against lefties. So as long as they're against lefties, I don't have a worry. Lefties are hitting only 205 against Matt Strom. So who's left now? We already talked about Hoffman. We talked about Sir Anthony Dominguez. I don't know how much confidence they'd have in him. Maybe they can get away with him in the seventh inning. But the guy to watch is the guy they just brought up, Ryan Kirkering, who's got this unhittable slider. And it's interesting to see whether they would have enough confidence to use him in the playoffs to get a tough right-handed hitter out with that slider. So all this is all good. They've also got Christopher Sanchez, who may come out of the pen. Another left-hander. They probably won't need to start him because they've got the three solid starters with Ranger Suarez in there, and then maybe Taijuan Walker gets to start ahead of Sanchez. But Sanchez has this lethal changeup, and the numbers with the changeup in September, 23 strikeouts on the changeup, and batters are hitting 0.98 against Christopher Sanchez. Now, the thing is, you can't throw the changeup every pitch. And when he has to throw his sinker, which is his main pitch, he has not been that effective. Batters are hitting 406 against him. Here's the last remaining element of this whole playoff scenario. Rhys Hoskins is trying desperately to come back. He's taking batting practice, and apparently he had a very impressive batting practice the other day. Would they activate him for any series here? Now, if you activate him, he's restricted to be the DH. You've already got your set lineup here, which is better defensively. If you play Rojas in center with Marsh in left, and you have Schwarber as your left-handed DH, and then you have Bryce Harper playing first base. So if Hoskins, if they're confident in Hoskins, he's got to be the DH, which means Schwarber has to play left field. So I don't know what they're going to do in that situation. It seems to be a little problematic. But there's no question that this is a Red October again, and the Phillies are going to excite a lot of people. They, in my opinion, have no chance to lose the first series. So we move on to the Braves, and whether this is a year that the Braves are better than the Phillies, which on paper, maybe they are, but their starting rotation is starting to leak a little bit. They've got a couple injuries in that starting rotation, so maybe the Phillies can get to them. And we saw how the Braves responded last year against the Phillies in this crazy ballpark. So, I mean, things are looking up. I mean, at one point, I didn't think that they were going to beat the Braves this year, but I'm pretty confident right now that they can give them a great series and possibly skate through that series and get to the finals in the National League and maybe get to another return visit to the World Series. All right, one thing on the Phillies here, as my dog is barking in the background because she equally thinks she shares my opinion about the Phillies going to the World Series, and she's trying to tell everybody. But one little tidbit on the Phillies happened last night with Angel Hernandez. We all saw that rotten call he made on Bryce Harper's check swing. But here's my thing on this. Bryce Harper's too good of a player to get thrown out of a game. Now, he showed his temper in several situations this year. And I just think if you're that great a player, you don't really need to do that. Now, Angel Hernandez is one of the most insecure, bad umpires in the game today. So if you give him a chance to throw you out, that's all he's looking for. You know, that's where he gets his power. He can throw a baseball player out of a game. So you're playing right into his hands with that situation. I know it was a bad call. I know he probably should have been angry about it, but that thing didn't do any good for anybody except Angel Hernandez. Bryce gets thrown out of the game. It was the last home game. People were there to see Bryce. He had 3 more at bats coming to him in that game, and sometimes I just think that he doesn't have to do that. He's too good of a player. It's like reminds me when I used to rankle when Tiger Woods would throw a club. I go, dude, you're the best golfer in history. Why would you lower yourself to have to throw a club? You're still going to win. You're still the best golfer. Like, what does it matter? All right. In any event, this had a feel-good ending because Bryce Harper, walking off the field, tosses his helmet into the stands, I assume, in anger. And the last time we saw that was a pitcher, Kevin Millwood, who was getting booed off the mound. And when he came off the mound, he threw his glove into the stands. But Harper did it out of exasperation, and it winds up in the hands of a kid who gets the helmet and became a story. All the reporters go down to interview the kid. They got him on the NBC Sports Philly, and then Bryce Harper asked for the helmet back so he could sign it for the kid. So all's well that ends well. But I just don't think Bryce has to lower himself, especially lower himself to a guy like Angel Hernandez, who's going to get some kind of weird satisfaction out of throwing a star player out of the game. Just, say, you know what, that's Angel. He missed the call. Screw him. and walk back to the dugout and get your 3 more at bats. That's the way I look at it. Okay, let's look at what's bugging Mike today, because as you know, on these blogs, there's always something bugging me. And what's bugging me today is the Ryder Cup. Now, if I haven't had enough to bug me with the American team going down lamely today to the Euros, which proves that on European soil, these guys that grow up playing golf in Europe have decidedly more grit than the players in the United States. I mean, I don't know what it is. I've tried to examine it. Maybe because everybody who grows up in Europe, in addition to playing golf, those guys are playing soccer. They're in a competitive fighting environment to play soccer. Everybody who grows up in Europe is playing soccer, right? So whether they're playing on a team or whatever, I mean, American kids are kind of country club kids. They're reared on golf. They're not really playing any other sport. And they're a little more spoiled and pampered. So when it gets into a competitive situation, maybe that has something to do with the Europeans dominating the Americans on European soil. It's been 30 years since the Americans won on European soil. So they've got that crowd behind them, and they respond to the moment, and they get gritty, and they're way ahead. They swept the morning sessions, and this is really what's bugging Mike. It's what the formats are called. So the first format is called foursomes. Now, what does that have to do with the actual format? The actual format is alternate shot. You hit a shot, your partner hits a shot, you hit a shot. What about that says foursomes? It just doesn't make any sense. And it bugs me. Just call it what it is. It's alternate shot. And then the next session is called 4-ball. But really, it's only 1 ball. 1 ball. The best score on the hole wins the hole. So it's really not 4-ball. At the very best, it's 2-ball because you're playing as a team. And the best score of the 2 golfers on the American side or the 2 golfers on the European side win the hole. And if you tie the hole, it's a tie, and you go to the next hole. So what does foursomes and 4-ball have to do with the actual format? It's bugging me. Change it to what it really is. All right. One other thing on the Ryder Cup. It's in Italy, which I find very interesting. I know a lot of Europeans flock to Italy, and it's not just the Italian fans. But I can imagine the Italian fans watching the Ryder Cup when somebody misses a putt. In America, you hear, ooh. Oh, in Italy, you hear, oh, Madonna, or something like that. Or like, you know how they say in America, get in the hole. Well, in Italy, it would be entrar del boco. Anyway, Italians are looking at the European team and go, hey, I come and know Italians on the team. And they got assistant coaches that are Italian, no golfers are Italian. I think I'll root for the one guy in the American team. His name is Homa. And that ends in an A. He must be Italian. But Max Homa is not Italian. And I'm just having a little fun because I'm Italian and I know what the vernacular is. So in any event, let's get to the quirky story of the week. All right, the quirky story of the week this week is a story that I'm looking at with a 5-foot alligator. Now, I know this is an era where you have the comfort animals, and you see this more and more because we're worried about people's mental health. And so a comfort animal is more prevalent today, and you see people bring animals on the plane, and they have to be certified and registered as psychologically comfort animals or whatever the declaration is. So the other day at Citizens Bank Ballpark, a guy tried to bring in a comfort alligator. Now, the alligator's name is Wally, as in Wally Gator in the old cartoon. But he claimed that this was his comfort animal. He wanted to bring an alligator into the park, which it's utterly ridiculous because a dog is less threatening than an alligator to other people. So they didn't allow him in. But it got to remind me of an old story that claims that it affected the Cubs to the point where they didn't win a World Series for a really long time. And I'll just go over that story quickly. So in 1945, there was a guy by the name of let me just check his name so I get this right because I don't want to. Okay, his name was William Cianis, and he tried to bring his pet goat in, his pet billy goat. I don't know what the goat's name was, but they wouldn't allow him in Wrigley Field for a World Series game in 1945. Got very upset, and he made a public accounting that he put a curse on the Cubs and that they would never win as long as this curse was out there, called the curse of the Billy Goat. And for 71 years, the Cubs did not win a World Series, and everybody said, oh, that's the curse of the Billy Goat. Finally, they broke through in 2016 and broke the curse of the Billy Goat. I just hope that there is no curse of the alligator here for the Phillies, that they wouldn't allow the comfort animal or comfort reptile into the ballpark, and that puts a curse on the Phillies. I don't believe in curses normally, but I want everything to go swimmingly right here for the Phillies as they try to get to another World Series. One other thing, the Eagles do play. They have no chance of losing. All right. They play the Washington Commanders this week. Don't even worry about it. There's no way that I can see the Eagles will not be 6-0 by the time they get to the first meaningful game, which will be a primetime game against the Miami Dolphins, who are playing great football right now. So you can go to sleep for the next 3 weeks, and they're going to beat these lowly teams. They've got the Commanders, they've got the Rams, they've got the lousy Jets with a quarterback who can't play. So that looks like a 6-0 piece to me. So revel in the Phillies, Red October, as they go into the playoffs, and be comforted by the Eagles being 6-0 before they have a meaningful game. All right, let's close it down. And again, you can get one of these great hats, MikeMiss Podcast hat, in all kinds of colors, white, red, khaki, which is a really nice hat. And all you got to do is write me an email. And if you get my attention with an email, I'll read it right here on this blog. And I will send you personally a hat. If you want me to sign it, I'll sign it. It's not necessary. If you want like this new logo, this label on it, I'll send it right to you. And all you got to do is send me an email at the following address right here on my website, MikeMiss.com. I get emails here, Mike@MikeMiss.com. So it's MIKE@MikeMiss.com. And that's how you can write me an email. I mean, if you pique my interest, whether it's sports, whether it's just life, I will read your email right here on the blog, and I will send you a hat directly from me to you. All right. Thanks so much for listening and watching the video blog, or as we call it, the vlog right here on MikeMiss.com. I do one every Friday of my thoughts on what's going on in Philadelphia sports and otherwise. So it's a pretty soggy weekend. It's a pretty chilly weekend, but everybody have a pretty good weekend. Maybe you can get out on the golf course tomorrow. Maybe it'll clear up, and it certainly looks like it's going to be really nice as the Phillies start the playoffs next Tuesday. So have a fun weekend, everybody, and thanks for listening and watching the MikeMiss blog on the website, MikeMiss.com. Take care, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.